Around 6,000 postal workers and 400 telecom engineers are attacked by dogs every year, and the union is now demanding that the vital dog control legislation reforms be taken forward in the 2012 Dog Control Bill.
Well, what you can see here today is a diverse group of organisations which have come together to form our Dangerous Dogs Campaign Coalition, which consists of trade unions and organisations like the animal welfare charities, employers like Royal Mail, British Telecom, the police, the medical profession, the vets have all come together, 20, 30 organisations, all with one voice, saying that we want a change in the dangerous dogs legislation of this country. And we're outside the Houses of Parliament here today, and there are MPs right across the House from each of the major political parties who are coming across to show their support for the call for a change in the dangerous dogs legislation. And that's what this is all about today, to keep the profile high, and for us to say, you know, David Cameron, you wrote to me 18 months ago saying you were going to support the CWU's call for its Bite Back campaign to change the dangerous dogs legislation in this country. We now want you to deliver that change.
Well, we're all here because there's an urgent need for an overhaul of the legislation. The CWU, the Post Office Union, have been very big on this campaign because so many post delivery people are attacked on a daily basis by dogs, and very often it's on private property, and yet you can't bring a prosecution against somebody on private property. So I think we're trying to say to the government now, as we approach Christmas, lots of people are thinking about dogs and animals and pets over Christmas. Well, think about the dog legislation as well. There are too many dogs, too many owners who don't understand the responsibility of what it is to be a responsible pet owner. We've got too many dogs filling up the dog's home looking for rehousing or being put down because they've been mistreated and so on. So this is a great campaign, and we've got posties, we've got veterinary surgeons, we've got police officers, we've got guys here from BT and the utility companies, all of whom want to see a change in the law.
There's MPs here from all parties right across Parliament because we really want the government to do something about our dangerous dogs legislation. At the moment, current dangerous dogs legislation just doesn't stack up. We're seeing more and more injuries every year. We know that between 5,000 and 6,000 postal workers are attacked every year by dogs right across the board. I've tragically had one of the 9 deaths that we've seen in the last couple of years from dangerous dogs in my own constituency. And the challenge we have at the moment is that people aren't protected if there's an attack on private property, and the powers that the police need, they don't yet have. And that's why we need to see new legislation come forward.
Well, this is a group of organisations, charities and government agencies as well. We're here to push for better dog legislation, to promote responsible dog ownership, promote welfare through that responsible dog ownership. It's a major problem. So many organisations here today, problems with irresponsible owners who are letting their dogs stray, aggressive dogs causing problems. Our officers, we've got about 410 officers out around the country every day, and our RSPCA officers are seeing all sorts of irresponsible dog ownership problems every day in people's homes, out on the streets. The government really needs to make it a priority to get better legislation on the statute book to promote responsible dog ownership. It makes financial sense and it makes common sense.
Several of my deliverers have been bitten by dogs, but it's a really serious problem for posties. More than half of the bites as well are on private property, and as the law currently stands, they don't face criminal prosecution, and they should, because no one should allow their dog to bite somebody just because they're on their land.
Where you know there are vicious dogs and people know these dogs are vicious, then that's where we need to do a lot more. In Northern Ireland, the police can actually pursue a problem with a vicious dog into somebody's home, and I think this is where we've got to get the balance right between, yes, your home is your castle, but it's not if you're actually inviting somebody into your home legitimately to help you as a family, and then they get bitten. And I think that's where a lot of public sector workers in particular are having to enter people's homes legitimately and then have problems with dogs. And I think that's what we're trying to get the legislation right.
We feel it's important to change dog law. It's clearly not working the way it is today. We believe the dog law is just not effective in its current form. We want to change it to make owners more responsible. Ultimately, owners are responsible for their dog's actions, and we believe that needs to be reflective in the law.
Batsy's on the front line of animal welfare in London and throughout the South East region. So anything that happens in terms of irresponsible ownership, we see it in Battersea. We feel that the Dangerous Dogs Act isn't working any longer, and we want the government to introduce something in the Queen's speech next year.
7 guide dogs are attacked every month by unruly dogs. I would urge MPs to look at this very, very seriously, not only from the perspective of us here at Guide Dogs, but for any member of the public that is out and about working or in a social situation that potentially could be affected by an out-of-control dog. The more protection we're afforded, the happier we're going to feel.
I am really hopeful. I think the government is starting to listen finally. It's been nearly now 18 months since Labour's review of the dangerous dogs legislation was put into place. 18 months is a long time. If you look at the kennelling costs for dangerous dogs, for the Metropolitan Police alone last year, it was in excess of £2 million. If you look at the number of people going through A&E units up and down the country and the cost of those treatments, it's significant. But most of all, people, including those behind me here today, are being injured, and sometimes there are fatalities that we see the tragedy in the press. And that's why I am hopeful. I think the government is listening, but the purpose of today is to say to the government, get a move on. 18 months is too long to wait. Let's get it done. All of these people agree on what needs to be done. So do it. Ministers, do it. Just get on with it.
I believe that we will get some changes. We also are looking for compulsory microchipping of all dogs. That would be very useful because we can actually trace where these dogs are. So we will get action from the government. We will press for it and we make sure something is done.
Let's not forget that our campaign has been highly successful. We launched this campaign in 2007 after 2 of our members got nearly killed, one in Cambridge and one in Sheffield. And since then we've convinced the Northern Ireland government to change the law, we've convinced the Scottish government to change the law, we're in talks with the Welsh government, they've indicated that they want to change the law, but it's just across the road here in Westminster that we really need them to live up to the promises that we've been given. 18 months ago, David Cameron himself, in writing to myself, gave us an assurance that he would change the law. We want them to deliver on those assurances. We want to see a commitment, and we want to see a bill introduced in the next Queen's speech that will introduce a change and a new dangerous dogs law in this country so that we'll be protected right across the UK. Postal workers, telecom workers, and all the workers you see lined up behind me today, members of the public and children. We want to see better protection for people against those irresponsible owners who allow their dogs to attack people, and at the moment can do so with complete impunity.